daddy's home, and you're like, why are you being nice to him? He's been away, I've been here feeding you. I clean your clothes, and you're nice to him.
All of that.
Jodie, when we had a conversation yesterday via Instagram and we were talking about podcasts, I felt like I wrote a quite inappropriate message to you, and I'm really sorry. I showed it to my other half and I said, look what I've just sent to Jodie, and she just said, of all the people in the world, she'll find that funny. So do you ever get messages from people that you're not sure if it's written the wrong way because of what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely thought I was coming on to a very serious podcast, and I got a message like that, and I was like, highly offended.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said I'd love you to come on mine if you're up for coming on, and I'll come on yours or something. I said,
and I was just like, wow, just
inappropriate.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry.
It's a great question, to be fair. I have a couple of interesting follows, and I'm always like, okay. Or LinkedIn, I've had a couple of requests for life coaching, and I'm like, I'm not sure that you're reading between the lines. That is my bio.
Right.
I know a lot of my colleagues who have had really inappropriate stuff sent, though. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, we went straight in on a downer, didn't we?
We did, yeah. Look at that.
Wow, can't believe it. So,
How do we get it back up?
well, how do you get it back up when it's gone down? I mean, you know that I'm a big fan of Sex with Emily, the podcast, and that's probably a question that someone would probably say, to be fair. How do you get it to go back up when it's gone back down? Who knows?
It's a good
question. It's a good question. So if anyone who doesn't know, obviously, Jodie, do you want to just remind everyone, because I know you've been on the podcast before, but remind everyone what you do and who you are.
Yeah, I have, and I know that you were obviously desperate for guests, so you're doing the rounds again.
That's basically it. Yeah, I've basically come back for sloppy seconds. You said it.
Who would go again? So yes, I am Jodie McLean. I am a sex, love, and relationships coach. I trained with Layla Martin, the Vita program, which was like one of the most intense trainings that I've done, and that's someone who's done their teacher training as well.
Mm-hmm.
I call myself a pleasure activist because I want all humans, to experience pleasure in like every part of their life, and want that to impact, how they show up in their relationships, how they show up as in their roles as parents, and how they show up in their businesses. And I also do some womb healing work. So I work with a lot of women who have either lost babies or trying to conceive or gone through transitions like hysterectomies, etc.
Wow. I know obviously we've talked a lot in depth and so forth, but has anything changed for you since we last spoke? Has anything shifted with like the summer, and has anything new? Any news and stories?
It's been a juggle, like mum, business owner, husband who I call him part-time husband because he works away a lot. So I think that juggle is real. And what I've probably done different this summer than previous summers is I've kind of allowed myself to slow down a lot more and be present, not kind of worrying about like, oh my God, I haven't posted on social media, so what's going to happen? And I'm coming out the back end of summer, like back to school tomorrow.
Amazing.
And I'm kind of coming out of that feeling I'm feeling really fired up for what September has to offer. It feels juicy. I feel like there's lots of kind of bits kind of been firing away, and I've been tending to the fires, and now it's kind of like, okay, like I can step fully into business in the next I've got loads of stuff coming up. I'm very excited about what's coming up.
One thing that has changed since we last chatted, you now have your own podcast, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I've become a bit of a fan of your podcast as well. So on the way back from a Saturday night, when I'm driving home from a gig or something like that, it'll be like 1-2 o'clock in the morning. And the other night, I listened to the episode you had with Maddie. The week before was the episode with lady who drives around in the van, drove the van back from America.
Lou in Newland.
Yeah. So I'm
Amazing.
absolutely loving your podcast, and I think it's great because I think there's so many great topics on there. And I know you only work with women, but I absolutely love the fact that when you were talking about Maddie this week, you were talking about the various different I think you're talking about kind of being there for your partner and so forth like that. And it was like I can't remember exactly how it was phrased, but it was something along the lines of when you don't feel sexy, if you're not made to feel sexy, and then like the whole knock-on effect of kind of perimenopause and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I know we've chatted about stuff like this in the past and stuff, but it was a real eye opener for me as well. That like, you know, actually as a man, being able to kind of make my other half know that she looks great, she, you know, how she makes me feel and all that kind of thing. And it was kind of like, it was a really kind of a bit of an eye opener. And we had a conversation about it yesterday, and I was just like, you know, it's funny, you don't think about necessarily the cycles that, even though I feel like I'm very aware of stuff, but it's like you forget that happens every fucking month. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, it's like if someone was to
Yeah.
kick me in the nuts once a month, I wouldn't be very happy about it.
Yeah. It's really interesting because it's almost like I feel like we get to a point as a woman where we're like, "Oh, right, I know my cycle, I'm tracking my cycle, I know when I've got my most energy, I know this." And then it's like perimenopause comes and you're like, you didn't know anything. And I'm
Mm.
really an advocate of perimenopause and moving into menopause being like a magical portal, a gateway to kind of really rediscover who you are, reclaim all of those bits that you were before you became wife, mother, a career woman, whatever it might be, whatever masks, identities you've had to put on. And I think that within that, our hormones shift and change. They deplete. Some may become stronger. Some may it- like rise at different times. So where we've maybe been able to track our cycle. And that was a great conversation with Maddie because we talked a lot about neurodivergence and how
Mm.
went into perimenopause where I recently had my ADHD diagnosis, where I'd previously spent decades kind of desperately trying to fit in and desperately trying to be a version of myself that I thought people wanted, and don't be too crazy because they won't like you. As like I hit perimenopause and it's like there's no escaping that. There's no filters, the masks are slipping off. Sometimes I'm ripping the masks off and I'm throwing them at people. But there's no hiding space
Yeah, yeah.
from the reality of who I am. And I know that I speak to many, many women who feel very, very similar. And it's interesting that I read there was an article in The Guardian this week that was talking about the rise in midlife marriage breakdown.
I didn't know I was friends with anyone who was clever enough to read The Guardian. Wow.
Remember that I've got an English degree. I'm an English teacher by trade, you
Yeah, I
know?
forgot about that. Yeah.
Got to do a little bit of snobby reading every now and again. And I don't have the statistics to hand, but a lot of women do end up divorcing, separating, especially women who maybe been in these relationships since they were like 17, 18, and they're still
Yeah.
in this relationship. And for a man, life's pretty, linear. It goes one way. Couple of things start to change. You get a few wrinkles, get a little bit of grey hair, maybe not as much testosterone pumping around. But for
Yeah.
women, it's like where we were kind of being able to have some control. And I think this is a big part of it, is that we've tried to control so many things in our life. And then we get to perimenopause and it's like you can't control anything anymore.
No.
There's like the brain fog hits, the energy levels. I'll get to 3 o'clock and I'm like a zombie. I'm like just looking at people. The kid's like, "You okay, mum?" And I'm like, what are we eating for tea? I don't know. Like, you expect me to make a decision about
You know how
food?
the air fryer works. That's why I taught you. It's loads of
So I
beige food
think
in there.
that, having a partner who is understanding of the changes, and I think I probably made this joke the last time I came on, but my poor husband, he doesn't know what version of me he's getting one day to the next. No wonder he works away so much, because he's like, I'll just leave Jodie there and maybe I'll get, homemaker Jodie when I get home, because, it could be the feral, raccoon version of me that's decorating rooms that don't need decorating or whatever it might be. So having a partner that's understanding is really, really important, because I talk a lot about masculine and feminine roles, and within within the masculine role, there's this desire for the feminine to be held. And I'm not talking about this in like traditional, like man goes to work, woman stays at home, but there's a capacity that we desire in a man, whether we like it or not, whether we will admit it or not, especially like hyper independent women. But there's a capacity in a man that we want for them to be able to hold us in like the extremities of crazy, you know, whether that be like our crying, whether that be our anger, whether that be our joy. Like we want a man that can hold us in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about heterosexual relationships within this space, and that's predominantly where I work. I don't know if that answers your question, but I do feel like I went on a little rant there, so you're welcome.
I love it because I was just like, oh my God, there are so many things that like and it's interesting that you say this about being held. And I think it does work both ways as well, because of like, as a guy, you know, when, you know, guys can experience like rejection in the sense of, you know, your other half comes home and he's like, oh, Psycho Jodie's home. And it is that kind of like, oh, actually that it can be quite, it can be quite hard on the partner as well, because you don't know what to expect and you feel like you almost tread on eggshells. So you almost, it's funny, I was just talking about people pleasing quite a lot, but you almost become that people pleaser of like, okay, I'll just do what you want, just don't explode. And I think that could be quite hard on a relationship in both senses as well, can't it?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. And I think that one of the things that we figured out very early on in our relationship, because James, we spent the first couple of years living together, and then he was in the military, so he worked away.
Also, I just want to point out that my middle name is James, and on the podcast with Maddie, I think you said that James is a good name. So just want to put out my middle name is also James, all right?
It's a great name. It's a great name. And my dad was Andy. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So very early on in our relationship, so a couple of years, we kind of had that married bliss. Life was great. And then he was moved off somewhere else and I stayed with the kiddos. And like I would spend the week kind of creating this, what worked, a routine that worked for us, for me and the kids. James would come back at the weekend and it was like this, we were just kind of, we weren't bonding. Like I was getting frustrated with him because I'd moved the cupboard that the salt and pepper lived in and he was putting it in the wrong place. He was getting annoyed with me because I'd moved the salt and pepper, you know, and obviously much bigger and more important things. But these little tiny things really built up. What was really going on was I was really resenting the fact that I was on my own with the kids when they were very young. And
Did you have the kids go, Daddy's home? And you're like, why are you being nice to him? He's been away. I've been here feeding you. I clean your clothes and you're nice to him.
Yeah. All of that. And then when the resentment builds, it's really hard to unpick that, you know. But I didn't understand I didn't see his viewpoint at all, that, you know, he was away all week. He was missing us. He was looking after just one person. And then he'd come home and he has to then look after 4, you know.
Yeah.
And so there was a part of me that wasn't seeing it from his side as well. And that's something that we've had to work a lot with over the years.
Yeah. How did you first kind of start that then? Was that just you dipping your toe in kind of, or was it instigated by you, or how did that work out? Because again, I think sometimes it's the communication, I think, is it's so key in relationships.
Yeah.
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 How do you start that combo?
I think probably through rupture. You know, like ultimately there was rupture, maybe probably more than once, where the same pattern was coming up, and it was like I wasn't feeling heard and seen. He wasn't feeling heard and seen, and we didn't have the capacity to kind of hear and see each other. And creating that time. I think I did mention this actually, maybe on your last podcast, but when he's away, one of my patterns is I have an anxious attachment style. So at the beginning, I'm like, please text me, please be my friend, please love me. And then I go, once I've got them, I'm like, okay, like I've got you now. Like, here's the barrier, here's the wall. And so I've worked a lot on that over the years. But when he goes away, so that separation, I go into avoidance. So I'm like, well, he's not here. He's left me. Like there's abandonment here. And so I'll go, I'm a hyper independent woman. I don't need a man. So actually one of the big
What did you do? Did you just slap on Beyonce and just start strutting around the house?
Yeah, turn off all the devices. You can't contact me now. But yeah, I've had to really be like, okay, what do I actually need? I need a phone call from you every day. I need
Amazing.
you to text me. I need you to check in on me. I need you just to be like in the morning, how are you? You know, I just need that interaction. And the big part is I've got to interact too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And do you know, even though it doesn't happen in the same way, whenever I'm away gigging, I have to 5 minutes before I get there. I don't have to, but I like to let the girls know that I'm nearly there so they know I'm arrived safe, that kind of thing. And again, it's that kind of almost that security for me that I also know that when I go away, I'm like, I know that they're safe as well. So it is that kind of like, although it's not necessarily probably is an attachment thing, I would imagine. But for me, it's always been something like that where it's like, I need to make, and the second I go away, if I go away like next week, I'm away, I will have to make those connections to kind of make sure that they know I'm safe. But I also want to know that they're safe. I mean, my other half says that she doesn't do half as much washing when I'm away. I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
we
I
actually
know.
had a really good rule when we first got together. It was I cook, she cleans, and the rule was without her, I would stink, and without me, she would die. So, you know,
I love that. Yeah, I love that. James is usually pretty good. Although he's not done it this week, so I'm gonna have to have a word with him because he's away at the minute. But usually he'll do a food shop that gets delivered, and I'm like, amazing. Like we will eat this week, children.
I love that. I love that. You don't end up going, why did you order that? You've
Hell
ordered,
no! If he saved me going to the shop or doing a food shop, you can send me whatever. I don't care what the food is, as long as it's there. Yeah,
I hate
simple
food
joys, simple
shopping. It's
pleasures.
rubbish, isn't it?
It does not. It does not. It does not serve my neurodivergent brain at all.
Well, it's like I didn't need a segue, but my next question was going to be, again, I've never had anyone say no, so it's totally up to you. But I'd love to know, going on a little bit of a tangent of what we were talking about, but what made you do your go and do your ADHD diagnosis? I'd love to know what kind of, because I think there's a lot of things as an adult we kind of think, well, that's what I am, that's who I am, but where did that sort of sit with you, and what made you kind of want to do that?
Yeah, great question. I know we've spoken about this before, but my youngest son has an autism diagnosis. So he's been diagnosed now for about 4.5 years, maybe. And one of the things that I had to do was I had to go on a parenting course during the diagnostic process. And I remember being like infuriated that they would even suggest that I had to go and do this parenting course. Anyway, it was probably the best 6 weeks of my life. I met some incredible other parents. The woman who was facilitating the course was just like a wealth of knowledge, as a mother of neurodivergent children and recently autistic diagnosis for herself. It was really, I just felt like I learned so much. It was really beautiful, and she held the space really well. But interestingly, every week I come away with like thinking maybe, just maybe that could be me. And I approached my GP coming up for a year ago and just said, look, I think I'm possibly ADHD and possibly autistic. What do I need to do? So it sent me this form through, and he came back to me and he said, I don't think you're autistic. I think you are ADHD. I'm going to refer you for an ADHD assessment. There's a piece around this whole like self-diagnosis, and that's great. For me, I wanted the answers, and I was happy to wait for NHS. I know that the waiting list is like 2 years. I've been seen under a year. I wanted some answers. Like I wanted to know. And it was interesting. The assessment was I had to go through a lot of like. I didn't have to go through a lot. I had to go through all of the trauma that I've ever experienced my whole life, which because they have to really see are these ADHD symptoms or are they trauma responses.
Trauma, yeah, yeah.
So we had to kind of peel through that, and then yeah, it was just, like, okay, that made sense. When I was that age and that was happening, that makes sense. When I was a teenager and I didn't feel like I fitted in or didn't know this or didn't do this, that makes sense. So for me, there was some grief. Like there was a piece of me that I cried on and off most of the day after my assessment and after my diagnosis. And then it was like, okay, this makes sense now. And then now I'm certified crazy. I can do what the fuck I want.
Oh, I love that.
My kids are like, are you just going to blame everything on ADHD now and the perimenopause? And I'm like, you knows it. You miss it.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said that because it wasn't at any point until the very end that you said that you were diagnosed with ADHD. And there was part of me that was like, I don't actually know if she was diagnosed now. I'm thinking about, like, I know you'd gone through I'm like,
Yeah.
did you get diagnosed? Wow.
Yeah. And he thinks I may be probably autistic as well. So, yeah.
So what was the process like for that for you then? Was it, obviously you said you kind of dig through some other stuff, but like, do you have to do like tests, or, because I've heard a friend of mine said to me that they went through it and their parents had to like fill out forms
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah. You have to get your parents' platforms as
It's
well.
like
So,
school again.
yeah, it is. So it was it's really interesting because when I put a post on Facebook saying, got my ADHD diagnosis, and then I would say about 25% of people were like, I really want to do it, but I just can't be asked with the process. And I was like, I hear you. So yeah, there was a lot of form filling. There was like the initial forms that the doctor checks, and then he says, yes, I think this is possible. They send that off. Psychiatry UK got in contact with me and sent me out another load of forms and a form for my mum to fill in, or parent.
Can I just say, right, for someone who thinks I'm probably am ADHD, like I've always, ever since I've ever known about it, I've always think, oh, that probably is it. The first thing that makes me anxious is a form. I mean, if
Forms,
you want to trigger me,
forms and telephone calls. Like the phone rings and I'm like, who's died? Like, don't ring me. Don't ring me. Someone's died. Or it's a nightmare. Yeah, forms go out your ears. So it was dead funny. I got this email from Psychiatry UK with the main forms, and I seen it pop in my email in my box, and I was like looking at it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, I got 3 months. Amazing. About a month later, I'm lying in bed and I went, oh, James, you never guess what? I've got my ADHD forms to fill in. And he was like, so have you filled them in yet? I was like, oh, no, you get 3 months. And he went, when did you get the email? I went, oh, about a month ago.
is that part of the test? Because that's got to be, because honestly,
I said to him, it's a test. He went, what do you mean it's a test? I'm like, they want to see how ADHD you are, how quickly you fill in the forms. And he just looked at me and he was like, Jodie, I don't think that's true. It's a form. The quicker you fill in the form, the quicker you'll have your assessment. And I was like, what does he know?
what's he know?
He doesn't know. He's
He
not got
sounds like
ADHD.
he's
He doesn't
normal.
know. You're so
Midnight,
autistic,
the
James.
day
Yeah.
before it's meant to be in, I'll start.
Yeah. Exactly. I think I've even got an email pop up from the day, and I'm like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll have a look at that in about 3 months. Yeah.
Because that's the thing. I mean, I always feel that when you say about it being like could be trauma, you start to think, well, you start to blame. And I think so when you said about like getting it yourself, was there like a gut feeling that was like, I have to know? And how I'd like kind of spin off on this, like if it come back and said, I don't like the word normal, but like, hey, Jodie, you're normal. Like,
Yeah.
do you think that would have had a negative effect maybe to a point? Because that's been my worry. I've always worried that if I do this ADHD test and it comes back and says you're not ADHD, I'll be like, oh shit.
Yeah. It was interesting because I spoke to I seen my school friends, class of 95, and I was like, hey guys, I think I'm going to get an ADHD test, and they were like, yeah. I was like, why didn't somebody tell me this at school? There was a part where during the assessment, and it's done online, and the psychiatrist keeps a very straight face throughout. Like, I wasn't sure if he thought my jokes were funny or inappropriate, or
Oh,
yeah, I was a bit like, I'm not sure how
I
to.
think your jokes are always funny, to be fair.
I'm not sure how to read this guy. And then there was about halfway through, I was like, he doesn't believe, like, not that he doesn't believe me. There was just this imposter syndrome. Like, he thinks I'm making this up.
Oh, yeah.
It was so bizarre. And I was like, oh my God, he thinks I'm making this up. He thinks I'm making this up. But obviously he didn't. So he gave me the green light. Yeah.
Wow. So how long did the process start then, from start to finish?
I think it was about 10 months for me to get my assessment. Diagnosis happens on the day, and then they refer you for medication. So I'm now on the wait list for medication, which could be 10 months. I haven't decided what I'm going to do about that, but I'm on the wait list. So I figured it was better to stay on the wait list, do a little bit of my own research. I do like to do things holistically. So I think if I can, the thing is, I've found over the last few years of doing a lot of healing work, a lot of trauma work, a lot of understanding my son, like having to understand how life differs from him. I've naturally built in a lot of strategies
Yeah.
for coping, managing. We've got a word in our house where like mum's overstimulated, and they know just to give me a little bit of space. It's yeah, stuff like that. I maybe wouldn't have necessarily done if I hadn't have done so much, self development, personal work. I don't know. It's one of them things. We found this with our son when he was diagnosed. It was like, okay, you've got autism. See you. We were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, but what happens now? Like, but now you're gonna tell us where we can." And they're like,
Because if I'm right, there's no like autism. You just have autism, right? There's no like medical treatment or no.
"No." And the ADHD medication that they prescribe can exacerbate autistic symptoms, autism symptoms.
Me of when my dad had his liver transplant and he had to take a anti-rejection tablet. The anti-rejection tablet gave him this problem, and then he has to take a tablet for that problem. And I'm like, that's why I've always been I've been quite avoidant when it comes to kind of particularly kind of pharmaceutical type stuff, because I'm just a bit like, oh my god, like I've got a foggy brain, and I go and do a meditation. I'm like, I come out of it and I'm like, oh, there we go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's stuff like that, and I don't. I'm always kind of like cautious of being like, this is what I do because I think there's a lot of stuff out there like kind of spiritual hierarchy of like, well, I'm more this or I'm more that. And for me, a routine is really, really important. So getting up in the morning, doing a meditation or a pleasure practice, some journaling, getting outside and having a walk. I've scheduled my week this week. Kids are back at school, so I'm like 12 o'clock. I'll have my lunch. I'll go for a walk, and then at 2:30, I'll have a nap. This is an experiment this
Nice,
week. I'm gonna have a nap or a
nice.
yoga nidra. So I really want to see how that impacts my energy levels and supports my ADHD symptoms, because that's when I notice like 2:30, 3 o'clock. I'm like I'm out the game, and I find myself sitting looking at the computer screen for like an hour, and I've maybe done like half a task, but I'm just sat there. Like if I sit here, I might be productive. So I'm like, let's change things. Let's try and nap and see what happens.
I recently uploaded one of my meditations to, I don't know if you use Insight Timer, but it was all about wherever you feel tension, and it's like an afternoon meditation that I created that is all about just replacing it with calm. So wherever you feel tension in your body, and just replacing that feeling with calm. And it's more of a kind of as you breathe in, you breathe out. It was almost like a metta type meditation.
Uh,
Um, and I have done various different ones over the years. I always find like a letting go meditation is always really good, because sometimes it's like that noise, isn't it? Of just like, but telling yourself to, as I like to just say, shut the fuck up and stop overthinking stuff is just that's why I like, yeah, I don't know if you listen to Yogi Brian.
no.
So Yogi Brian, you'd absolutely love him. You would definitely love him because he's got, funny enough, he's just released a T-shirt which just says "Nama Titties," and it's a picture of two hands on that. I'll send you a link to him after this, but
Yeah,
he
love
always
that.
does his meditations. He does Sleep with Yogi Brian. But he, in the lockdown, was really, really like, I used to love watching him on TikTok, because he'd be like, "Hey fucker, sit down, shut the fuck up. You got 2 minutes to chill out." And you're like, do you know what? Sometimes I think it's funny that we were just talking what we were just talking about with ADHD, and sometimes I do need it just to direct Andy. You need to sit down, shut up, chill out, and then you come out of it. And I'm like, yeah, the amount of times I've come out from an afternoon meditation, I've come down the stairs. I don't know if did you ever watch Friends? So you know the episode of Friends when Joey and Rachel get together, and they're like they can't have sex because they're like, and then they say they're powering through. That's like me coming down the stairs. I'm like, we're powering through. We're going. It's like on to the next task.
Yeah,
So I love that, Jodie. I love that.
yeah. And it's an experiment. I'll try it for a couple of weeks, see how it goes, and I've been reading Rest as a Resistance, the book. I can't remember the author's name, but particularly women. I mean, she's talking about it from the perspective of a Black woman as well, and talks about the generational trauma of slavery. But as women, particularly, like we've had these roles of just like we just go, like we've so conditioned to just keep going, and then no wonder we're like burning out. No wonder we're getting into perimenopause and like, who the fuck am I and why am I still with you? Like, of course, all of these things are going on. And so deconditioning and saying, well, that's not working. You know, me sitting just staring at my computer for an hour is not working. Let's try something different. What does that get
No.
to be?
And
And I want to acknowledge my privilege within that, that it can do that. You know, I appreciate that a lot of people may not have that capacity, and it's finding those moments, you know, like you said, even if it's 2 minutes, 2 minutes of switching off everything, closing down the eyes and just going within.
yeah,
That's something.
I've actually I've done this quite a lot over the myself as well, but having someone to do it with, and I've just started up a little accountability kind of co-working group with two other ladies, and last week this was mad. We started and we're like, oh, we're going to do 25 minutes. We're on Zoom, and then we'll just take 2 minutes, so 5 minutes. We'll have a little boogie, we'll have a little dance. Now, I know you like to have a little dance, Jodie, but literally, like, in the 5 minutes, went for a wee, came back, we put some music on, we were all like dancing away, bang. Should we do 40 minutes now? Yeah, cool. We did that 4 times. And I was just like, because I knew that I had this accountability and this focus of like, right, I know that these two people are on their call. Apparently, because I put my own music on, because I have to be they talk about multitasking and how you shouldn't have the TV on while you're working. Mine's like, I can pick the BPM that I know that my body goes, and I'm just like on it, like I'm in a club, like I'm 19. And yeah, they were messaging each other, apparently laughing at me because I was just fully going for it. Well, and I decided I wasn't going to sit down for the whole 40 minutes. But if
Love
I had
that.
been downstairs on my own or in the office
Mhm.
on my own, I might have stared at that computer for 40 minutes and got nothing done.
So body doubling is a huge ADHD strategy. And I didn't realize that I was doing it. I knew that I was doing it with my son sometimes, like
Yeah,
even
yeah.
just me being in the bathroom with him helps him do his teeth, or he'd be sitting in the bath next to him, you know, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like being with him. But actually, like my daughters are getting a bit older now, and one of them loves to cook. And what a difference I noticed with her just being in the kitchen of an evening, like next to me in the same space, or when James is working from home, like I get loads more done. I feel like he's totally checking up on me. It's like, what do you actually do? And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
really, really important stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, just having someone, and so the accountability groups, co-working spaces work really, really well.
Really mad that you said that, because I've actually, the last couple of weeks, it's almost like sometimes I feel like I'm having a bit of a telepathy with some people, but the last couple of weeks, my daughter, she's always a nightmare brushing her teeth. So every time I brush my teeth, I'm like, do you want to come brush your teeth for me? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, we're going to put some music on. She's like, oh, okay, cool. So he comes up and like, I mean, admittedly, if I hear Pink Pony Club one more time, I'm going to go crazy. But it's like that whole kind of accountability of like doing it with people. And through the summer, because I've been working from home, and this is like the first probably time where she's at that age where she's really noticing I'm working from home. She wants me to get a corner sofa here, because she doesn't want to be necessarily downstairs where I obviously wouldn't be on a call with a client, but like if I'm working on like something on my laptop or something, she's like, can I just like come up and hang out with you? But so she's like, can we get a beanbag? I'm like, the whole summer it's like, can we get the beanbag? Can we get the beanbag? But that's the thing, isn't it? It's that accountability and that being present with people. So
Yeah.
Jodie, thank you so much. It's been again an absolute delight chatting to you. And again, well, I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to have you on the podcast again.
I think, I don't think, I would like to have you on mine, maybe
Oh,
our first male guest.
have you not had any guys on your do you know
Not
what?
had any
That's
guys.
interesting, because I struggle to get guys on my podcast. I've
No,
had so many guys that
I've
have
not
just
had
been
any
like,
men. I keep threatening James. I'd love to have James on. I'd love for people to see like the dynamic between the two of us. I did say to him before I started Midlife Mayhem and Magic, I did say to him, I came out the bathroom and I was like, I've got an idea. And he's like, what is it? Which happens a lot. And he's like, what is it? Like, I can see the eye roll and the internal eye rolling. And he said, I said, me and you would do a podcast. And he was like, no. I'm like, yeah, but
absolutely
we
not.
could. Like, I could talk about all the sort of like spiritual stuff, and you could be like, where's the evidence? I said, it'd be great. And he was like, sounds shit. No. I was like,
But that's probably why you work so well together, right?
yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. I love
It
that.
keeps me grounded.
Jodie, I'm going to put the link to your podcast in the show notes as well, because one, I
Thank
love your
you.
podcast, and two, hopefully then people will go on there and they'll be like, oh, there's Andy.
recognise him. Yeah, thank you. Thanks
Amazing.
for having me on. It's been great and always good to chat to you. And stop sending me inappropriate messages.
And that wraps up today's episode of the Coffee, Chaos and Confidence podcast with me, Coach Casey. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps other listeners find the show. Also, go and check out the show notes to learn more about my incredible guests. Until next time, make sure you chase your dreams without limitations.